My favorite quote from this episode is Rob says, "The number one point is listen. Talk to your employees and really understand what's going on for them. Because we can often sit at the center in large organizations and make assumptions about what will work for our well-being without asking the people that we're trying to help. Asking your employees what's going on at the team level and gathering that information is really important. If you take this seriously, there's a concept of psychological safety that is really important to consider." Welcome to the Unscripted Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Nicastro. Today, I will be sharing with you the second 5 of the top 10 podcasts of 2024. If you missed the first half of this list, go back to the podcast that was published on December 18th to check out the other 5. They are being presented in random order. So half was covered there, half will be covered today. And then we will be getting into our fresh content for 2025 when I see you next. By the way, by the time you're seeing this, I should wish you a happy new year. So let's dig in. The first of the 5 episodes that I'm sharing today is episode 292. This episode is titled, "Are You Overlooking the Importance and Impact of Neurodiversity at Work?" This episode was with Tristan Lavender, who is a neurodiversity speaker, founder and chair of the Philips Neurodiversity Network, which is their employee resource group, and senior content strategist, writer, and editor at Philips Communications Center of Excellence. That was a mouthful. I found Tristan on LinkedIn, and I really appreciate his content. I was thrilled to have him come on for a very open and honest conversation about navigating work life with a neurodivergence and why and how companies could benefit from giving this area of diversity more thought and more action. So my favorite quote from Tristan, he said, "It is important for employers to recognize that neurodivergent people can add a lot of value to organizations precisely because they think differently and because they bring unique strengths that others may not be able to offer. But the other side of that is that you then, as an employer, as a business, also need to create the environment that is able to adapt to what these individuals need in order to bring their best selves to work. It's all about taking the balanced perspective. We say at Philips, we are an innovation company. In order to innovate as a company, you need people who think differently. You need different perspectives in a team. You need that healthy friction. So I think neurodiversity is really essential for any team and for any organization. I believe it will also become more important with the rise of AI. It's relatively easy to automate standard thinking, so we're going to need more of the new and original thinking. A lot of neurodivergent people can bring that strength to work." Tristan did a phenomenal job in this episode of not only articulating the value to businesses of better consideration around neurodivergence, but also sharing his personal experience in a way that destigmatizes and enlightens listeners. So I would highly suggest to anyone follow Tristan Lavender on LinkedIn. He shares a lot of content to help educate folks on this topic and create community around this topic. He also is a photographer and shares some incredible imagery of his own as well. The next episode I want to cover is episode 252, titled The Art of Leading. This was with Roy Dockery, author of The Art of Leading, and now Director of Field Service Research at TSIA. My favorite quote from this episode, Roy says, "Authenticity in the workplace is more than being genuine. It's about respecting and valuing your unique qualities and encouraging others to reveal their true selves, creating a ripple effect of mutual respect, understanding, and empowerment. Being authentic means sharing your interests, passions, and vulnerabilities appropriately. This fosters a culture of openness and mutual support. Leaders can kickstart this positive cycle by gradually sharing more of themselves, showing it's safe for others to do the same." I believe authenticity in business and in leadership is so incredibly important, but I also find it very hard to describe well. And Roy did just that in that quote. Roy and I also have some great dialogue around the place that love has in leadership and a number of other things. Again, Roy Dockery, great follow on LinkedIn if you aren't already. He regularly shares not only good information, but inspiration for service leaders. The next episode is episode 282, reflecting on a 35-plus year career in field service. What's changed, what hasn't, and where are we headed next? This episode was with Tim Bunn, who was formerly the Vice President of North American Operations at Interblock Gaming, and prior to that had held leadership roles with Bunn, Scientific Games, WMS Gaming, ACO Brands, and Taylor. My favorite quote from Tim is, "What I tried to do in my career was always just be thinking, okay, this feels pretty good, but what am I missing? And what's next? Where's the next opportunity to change something? Because if you're not looking to change something, you're staying put, which is the same as moving backwards. So I tried to find something always that needed a fix. I never implemented any technology in any of my roles just for the sake of technology. I did it because I wanted to solve a business problem. I had an issue, I had to solve it. And I looked to others and experts and technology to try and figure out the solution. And then I'd go grab whatever that solution was and try and implement it in my business to make it better. Then you could innovate on that, innovate or iterate, or find the next business problem and go find a solution to that. And so always just being on the hunt, I guess, for the next problem to solve. I love how Tim explains this mindset and shares that he was never innovating for innovation's sake, but always looking for what the next problem was to solve. I think that guiding principle is so, so important. This episode is a treasure trove of wisdom, and I'm so glad that Tim was willing to share his wisdom with us before he retired. So please go back and have a listen. The next episode is episode 265, Smashing Stigma Around Mental Health and Prioritizing Well-Being at Work. This episode was with Rob Stephenson, who is a TEDx speaker, mental health campaigner, keynote speaker, CEO of FormScore, and founder of the Inside Out Leaderboard. His work building mental health awareness has been inspired with his own journey with bipolar. And I absolutely love having this conversation with Rob. I really appreciate his vulnerability, his honesty, his intelligence, and his commitment to all of the amazing things that he's doing. My favorite quote from this episode is Rob says, "The number one point is listen. Talk to your employees and really understand what's going on for them. Because we can often sit at the center in large organizations and make assumptions about what will work for our well-being without asking the people that we're trying to help. Asking your employees what's going on at the team level and gathering that information is really important. If you take this seriously, there's a concept of psychological safety that is really important to consider. Psychological safety, as championed by Amy Edmondson of Harvard, talks about the belief that you won't be held back, punished for speaking out, making a mistake, or coming up with an idea." There's plenty of evidence to support what Rob is discussing here on the benefits of psychological safety. And he gives a ton of other great advice on how to accomplish psychological safety among the workforce, how to reduce stigma around mental health, how to create environments that prioritize overall workplace well-being, and much, much more. So this is an episode that we shared during Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's a topic that is important all of the time. Rob is a wonderful advocate and, again, well worth a follow on LinkedIn, along with checking out the great work that he does with FormScore and the Inside Out Leaderboard. And I hope that you all are making the mental health and well-being conversation a priority in your own workplaces. Last but not least, is episode 247, Tetra Pak's Proven Ways of Supporting Field Force Wellbeing. This episode was with Hugo Guiterrez, Vice President of Customer Service Operations for EMEA at Tetra Pak. Marco, in this episode, shares a detailed look at how the company is putting more emphasis on employee engagement, particularly among its field force, to promote and maximize well-being. My favorite quote from this episode, Marco says, "In the future, we should be able to offer models of work modalities that allow the engineers to have more flexibility. For example, when it comes to planning their personal life. Also, I think that it's going to be important to offer rotations in the back office, as for example, if they have a situation at home or with their family, to be able to stay for 6 months as a remote support engineer or other positions that don't require so much travel. More and more, we will need to be flexible, and remote support will play an important role in that aspect." What I love about this quote is that even with what Marco shares that Tetra Pak has accomplished in its recent effort to better serve its field force, they are continuing to look ahead. They're continuing to think about how what the workforce needs is evolving and what is possible with technology and the current talent landscape to get creative and do things differently. Throughout this episode, Marco gives a lot of great specifics around how Tetra Pak worked to really deeply understand the views and needs of its field engineers and the actions that they've taken to address those needs. Marco also delivered a keynote presentation at Field Service Europe in October that in some ways expanded on this episode. He talked about the importance of, in sort of a triangle idea, keeping employee, customer, and financial objectives all in mind and all balanced, and what happens if you let any one of those slide. So that well-balanced view is really an inspiration. Tetra Pak is doing a great job of it. And the specifics that Marco shares here about particularly the employee piece of that are really good. So again, well worth a listen. So I hope you will check out these 5 episodes that I've reviewed today, along with the other half of the top 10 of 2024 that I shared on December 18th. Again, major thank you to every guest, not just those that I've mentioned, but each and every guest that joined us in 2024. And we're excited to share more in 2025. So thanks for listening. Before we're back for the next episode, please feel free to check out more at futureoffieldservice.com. The podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more at ifs.com. As always, thank you for listening.